were working the Dagger Deep rig, an offshore drilling platform floating 130 miles off the Gulf Coast far from anything resembling civilization. I was part of the rotation crew assigned to 2 a.m. shifts, the ones nobody wanted. Something about nights out there just felt wrong. The wind didn't blow right, the lights flickered more than they should, and sometimes, when it got real quiet, it was like the ocean whispered back. That night started like any other. We were 2 weeks into a routine drill when the pressure on well shaft 4C dropped out of nowhere. No tremors, no leaks, just a sudden plummet like something in the earth swallowed the equipment whole. The supervisor, Jeff, cursed under his breath and radioed down to have someone inspect the lower shaft tunnel carved directly beneath the platform, stretching into the seafloor. Mason, one of the most seasoned drillers we had, volunteered to go down into the mudroom, a narrow chamber just above the borehole. Tough guy, ex-Army, nothing rattled him. Until that night, we all watched as Mason suited up. Yellow protective gear, reinforced harness, headlamp bolted to his hard hat. He cracked a joke on the way down. If something grabs me, tell my ex-wife she can finally have the house. We laughed. Nervously, 30 minutes passed. Then an hour. We tried to intercom, nothing. Radio dead. The monitors in the control room showed static from the shaft cameras. Then, for a split second, they blinked back on. Mason stood at the base of the borehole, looking up at the camera. Except it wasn't moving. He just stood there, perfectly still. His headlamp flickered, then died. Then the feed went black. Protocol said we should have called the Coast Guard and waited for a full rescue team. But Jeff made the call someone had to go down. I volunteered. Don't ask me why. Maybe guilt, maybe fear. They lowered me into the mudroom using the manual lift. The shaft was narrow, the walls lined with hydraulic tubing and old rust patches. The deeper I went, the more the light dimmed. Even with my own lamp, it felt like the darkness was pressing in. Then I reached the bottom. Mason's suit was there crumpled against the wall like it had fallen off his body. His helmet was split open down the middle, but there was no blood, just a black smear on the inside. No sign of Mason. That's when I heard it. Tapping. Coming from inside the steel tubing behind the bore. 3 slow taps. Pause. 2 quick ones. Then 4 more. It hit me. Morse code. I scribbled it down and radioed it up. The on-site tech translated it. HELPSTUCKDOWN. I turned toward the borehole. A massive, gaping cylinder descending straight into black earth. That's when I saw something. A figure crawling up from the tunnel's edge, but it wasn't Mason. This thing moved wrong. Jerky. Broken. Its limbs bent in ways no human should. Its suit was stained with thick black oil that bubbled like it was alive. It stopped halfway up the borehole wall, clinging to the steel like an insect, and snapped its head toward me. Its helmet was shattered, revealing a face. But not Mason's. It was a mix of faces, half-burned, twisted features mashed together in a grotesque expression that kept changing. Screaming, silently, smiling, crying. I backed away, scrambling for the lift controls, but the lift didn't move. The thing in the wall began mimicking my voice. I'm Mason. Help me. Help me. Help me. But the words were out of sync with the mouth, like a bad recording. I slammed the emergency recall and the rig pulled me back up. As I ascended, I looked down one last time. It was still watching, and it smiled. They shut down the shaft and quarantined the area. No one went back down. Officially, Mason was listed as lost during an industrial incident. But something else happened that made me believe we'd uncovered more than just oil down there. 2 days later, the pressure gauges on shaft 4C started climbing again on their own. The borehole was alive. And the last reading before it was sealed? 3 taps, 2 taps, 4. A week after I left the rig, I got a package in the mail no return address. Inside was a worn cassette tape, labeled in red marker, Mason, final transmission. I played it. At first, just static. Then a faint voice, his voice. I went too deep, there's something buried down here. It's not rock, it's not oil, it's something older. It's watching. It has faces. God, it has so many faces. Then a final sound, 3 slow taps, and silence. In the blistering heat of West Texas, among stretches of sand and bone-dry brush, sits an oil field known as Well Site 1137. It had been shut down for over a decade. The crew dried up, the drills removed, and the place was abandoned except for a single flare stack still standing at the center of the lot. The thing was, the flare never stopped burning. There hadn't been gas flow to that line in years. The field was dry, fully capped, yet the flare lit up every night, a slender blue-orange tongue flickering in the desert wind. It didn't matter how many times the company sent people to check it. Every attempt to snuff it failed. It became a rumor, a ghost story, until the company sent in a new field contractor named Derek Jansina, practical, no-nonsense man with 20 years of oil field experience and zero belief in cowboy superstitions. Derek arrived at well site 1137 with 2 rig hands and a small demolition team. Their orders: remove the stack, torch, cut the base, haul it back to Houston. They arrived around 2:15 p.m. The sun boiled overhead. The land looked dead, and yet the flare still burned. Leaking gas, maybe, one of the hands muttered. No, Derek replied. The line sealed from the source. There's nothing to feed that fire. The team set up camp and planned to begin dismantling at dawn. But that night, Derek couldn't sleep. He kept hearing whispers on the windload, foreign, almost like chanting. And the flame, it had grown taller, brighter. The heat from it was unnatural, radiating across the desert like it had a pulse. That's when he noticed the symbols carved into the metal at the flare base. They weren't engineering marks. They were ritualistic circular designs, scorched into the steel, something old. The next morning, the crew brought out plasma cutters and approached the flare stack. Derek noticed something strange in the dirt beneath it. The remains of charred bones, half buried. They dismissed it as old cattle. First cut into the steel sent out a shriek knot, metal on metal, something that sounded like a woman screaming in agony. One of the men, Marcus, dropped his torch and fell backward, trembling. Did you hear that? They all did. The team wanted to pull out. But Derek, prideful and angry, insisted they finish the job. When the second torch ignited, the flame atop the stack roared to life, shooting up 20 feet like a blowtorch from hell. Wind kicked up. Sand blasted in every direction. The heat nearly knocked them off their feet. And then Marcus caught fire. No one saw how. 1 second, he was stepping back from the stack. The next, he was engulfed, flames bursting from under his skin like they came from inside. He screamed, ran, fell and was gone. Nothing left but a blackened outline in the dust. Terrified, Derek and the remaining team fled to the trailer. Inside, they checked the flare schematics and dug up old field records. Something wasn't right. They found a logbook from 1973, written by the original drilling foreman. One entry, dated June 20, read, "We hit something. Not oil, not gas, something buried. We made the mistake of burning it. Now the flame won't go out. I've sealed the site. God forgive me." Later entries hinted at a ritual, an old world sacrifice. Someone had bound something to that flare knot, just fire, but a presence. That night, the flame burned even brighter. Shadows danced on the sand, moving independently from their owners. One of the team, Jeff, walked into the desert and never returned. Derek found his boots melted into the soil, his clothes folded neatly nearby. And then the whispers returned stronger. They didn't come from the wind, they came from within the flame. Alone, panicked, Derek tried to drive out only to find his truck melted into the ground, tires fused to the earth. The flare pulsed like a heart. He heard voices calling his name, his own voice echoing back. Then he saw the figures, charred silhouettes standing in the sand, watching, silent. Marcus, Jeff, and others, more than a dozen, workers long dead, their eyes glowing like embers. The flame demanded something. It always did. That's why it never went out. Someone had to feed it. Derek was never found. But 3 days after the last transmission, the flare went out. Only for a moment. Then it relit itself. No fuel, no ignition, just eternal fire, fed by something far older than oil or earth. Something waiting beneath the desert. The rain came down hard that night, cold, relentless, and uncaring, slicing through the thick mist that had settled over the sea like a shroud. Out there, in the middle of the dark, endless North Atlantic, stood Derek 7, an offshore drilling platform decommissioned for over a decade. No one had set foot there in years, at least not officially. From the Coast Guard's satellite scans, Derek 7 had begun transmitting a weak but persistent signal, just static at first. Then came a voice faint, crackling, distorted by time and water. We never left. That was enough to send a private salvage crew out to investigate. They were professionals, 4 of them hired under the radar. No questions, just cash. Their goal? Shut down any rogue transmission, salvage what they could, and get out. But as their boat pulled alongside the rusted legs of Derek 7, a feeling settled over them like a wet, heavy sheet. Something wasn't right. They docked in silence. The rig groaned under its own weight, metal joints grinding like teeth in a jaw that hadn't opened in years. The access stairwell up to the main deck was slick with algae, and the railing bent slightly when Ethan, the team lead, grabbed it. He signaled to the others, Jules, the technician, Marla, their medic and former Navy, and Dom, the youngest, handling the comms. They moved cautiously, boots thudding dully against corroded steel. The control room was their first stop, but when Jules powered up the ancient terminal, it screamed into life with an unnatural shriek, not feedback, not interference, but a sound like someone screaming underwater. "Turn it off," Marla said too quickly. Her voice trembled. "It's looping something," Jules muttered. "There's a recording here, date stamped 2 weeks ago." That was impossible. The platform had been empty for over 10 years. Dom played it back. What they heard were voices, dozens of them, overlapping, whispering and chanting in broken cadence. "Below the rig, we're still here, pull us up." Then, static. And one final line, "Bring the elevator down." The cargo elevator that led to the rig's lower levels hadn't worked in years or so, they thought. Jules checked the panel, then frowned. "There's power down there," she whispered. "Not much, just enough." They hesitated. Ethan, always the pragmatist, insisted they follow the mission, but even he couldn't hide the unease in his voice. As the elevator shuddered to life, it moaned like something waking from a long sleep. The rusted gate screeched closed, and they began their slow descent. With every foot they dropped, the air grew colder, thicker. Shadows twisted in the flickering emergency lights. The silence was broken only by the groaning of metal and the faint, wet sound of something dripping constantly. Then, a whisper. Right behind them, Dom spun around, flashlight darting, nothing there. "I heard it," Marla whispered. Someone said my name. No one else spoke, but they all heard the second voice. "Don't leave us." The lower level was wrong. The walls dripped with condensation, but there were also streaks of something darker. Rust, maybe, or blood. Their radios crackled, then screamed with overlapping voices, too many to count, crying, pleading, laughing. Jules ripped her headset off. "It's coming through every frequency." Ethan's flashlight flicked and died. The hallway ahead pulsed in red emergency light. That's when they saw the handprint. It was smeared across the wall, fresh, then another, then dozens. Something skittered just beyond the light. Dom raised his camera. Through the lens, he caught a flash, a face, twisted and hollow-eyed pressed against the glass of a sealed control room. It vanished when he looked directly. Inside that room, they found a logbook. The final entry was scrawled in blood-red ink. "They drilled too deep. We found the void. It looked back. They tried to ascend. The elevator refused." The voice returned, clearer this time. Cold, deliberate. "One of you must stay. One of you belongs. Marla began to scream. She clutched her head, falling to her knees. "I can hear them in my skull," she cried. "They're inside." The lights exploded. In the brief darkness, something moved a shape with too many limbs, dragging itself across the wall. When the lights flickered back, Marla was gone. A trail of wet footprints led into the ventilation shaft. They followed the footprints into the heart of the derrick. Deep in the engine room, they found the original drill core. It was humming. Jules stared at it, wide-eyed. "That's impossible. It should be buried. It should be sealed." Something had dug its way out. Behind the core, a massive fissure had split the steel floor. From it came a pulsing black vapor, oily, alive, whispering in an inhuman language. Dom approached. A hand reached up. Not human. It was made of wires, bone, and glistening oil. It grasped his ankle. Dom screamed, but he never finished. It pulled him into the dark, swallowed whole. Ethan and Jules ran. Up, back to the top level. The elevator now responded, waiting. As they reached the platform deck, the rain had stopped. Fog rolled in. Thick, heavy. The boat was gone. The derrick was whispering again. Ethan turned to Jules, but she was staring off the edge into the sea. "They told me," she said, dreamlike. "We all belong to the machine now." And she stepped over. Ethan didn't follow. He ran. Into the rig, into the maze, into the voice. Weeks later, the signal ceased. The derrick was empty once again. Or so it seemed. Beneath the waves, under steel and rust, something waited. And it whispered, "Next crew inbound."